I think regrettably Matt Wiltshire is no longer going to be able to be heard, but I found some joy in that in the first meeting today, so he might enjoy this meeting more as a result of that as well. I want to acknowledge our chair, Emily Thaden, who did such a nice job taking us through the balance of the agenda from last week. The meeting last week and I think this week, which were the first ever for MDHA in this particular medium, have gone extremely well. And Emily and the committees all deserve a lot of credit for moving so easily and seamlessly.
Rob
has joined the meeting.
I am looking for gallery view so I can see all of you. Ah. Yeah, I've got it. I see you. And I'm apparently I'm listed here as Matt Wiltshire, which is quite a compliment to me, but it's not correct for the record for those who are watching. There's also, I think, should be a broad view of the room itself. And we thought that we might do that because this is, in the end, a meeting of the Metropolitan Development Housing Authority. And this is a way for the record to reflect exactly what was happening in
has
the
joined
room.
the meeting.
Those announcements probably could be turned off.
Has joined the meeting.
Okay, good. Paulette, I can still only see the top of your head. Perfect. Thank you. I can also still see the campaign poster, which I like very much.
Thank you.
I pay attention to such things.
I cleaned my office, changed the background.
I think that I like that particular poster, and it's a reminder that it's what brought you to us.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it might make sense for us to take a kind of a roll call, make sure we know who is here and who is not from the board.
Okay. I think that would be great. Latanya, would you like to do that? Are you on? Or Saul, you're welcome to do it.
Okay, Commissioner Batts,
Here.
Commissioner Coleman,
Here.
Chair Purcell,
Here.
Commissioner Bowers, Commissioner Bowers, you're on mute.
Here. How's that?
Better.
Okay, and Commissioner Campbell, are you on? Okay, and Commissioner Ansari. Saw him earlier. On mute. Okay.
I was on mute.
Okay, very good. All right, so we have 6 commissioners present. We are missing Commissioner Campbell.
Well, there being a quorum, I believe I can officially call this meeting, the April 14th meeting of MDHA, to order. And let me just say, we had I thought, a very good update both this week and last week from our executive director and our staff concerning the work that's being done, both in the continuing effort to recover from the tornado and also the very specific work being brought to our residents and our staff to address the issue of the coronavirus in our community. And it may very well be that we would like to, and I hope that we can have a little more of that in the executive director's report, which is coming up in just a moment. And with that understanding, unless there is any objection, we'll just move into the agenda and get to the executive director's report as quickly as we can. The first item for our consideration is the approval of the minutes, the meeting of March the 10th. I have an amendment I'd like to make to those minutes and that is regarding the motion for approval of the resolutions on tax income and financing. I believe the minutes indicate that that motion was made by the chair, and I believe, in fact, that motion was made by the chair of the Finance Committee, Commissioner Emily Thade. And so with that change, unless there's objection, without objection, we'll amend the minutes to that, to make that change. Are there any other changes to the minutes?
The only objection I would make, Mayor, is that it be Miss Emily Thade, not Mr. Emily Thade.
Absolutely. With that understanding, any further amendments or changes or understandings to the minutes? Are you ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, and you approve the minutes. Introductions. Are there any introductions that need to be made? Seeing none, we'll move to public comments. We have solicited public comments, both for our committee meetings as well as for this larger meeting. This was done through direct communication through our MDHA staff, asking the public if they wished to be heard. Is there any public comment to be made? Mr. Harbison, others?
We received no requests for public comments. Jamie Bear's been checking that. We haven't requested.
Chair, this might be to just let everybody know that we did solicit public comment agenda that was published, which was broadcast fairly widely, and that we welcome at this meeting the entire public body, whether it be individual citizens, members of NGOs, concerned people, members of the press. I just have actually been listening in intently. Glad to know that. And so just everybody's aware, everybody out there in the public, that we welcome all of you to the MDHA meeting.
And I guess, again, I will state for the record that it is my understanding that the meeting is being both tape recorded or is being maintained electronically, and also is available on being broadcast on YouTube. We're proceeding under the executive order of Governor Lee, which allowed meetings of this type and which have been occurring across the city and across the state as a result of that executive order. Normally not allowed under state law, but those provisions were suspended by action of the governor in his executive order. And we have, with Saul Solomon's direction, been attempting to make sure this meeting complies with all of the requirements of open meetings, open records ultimately, and the governor's executive order. Any questions about that or concerns? Seeing none, I think we're ready for the executive director's report. Item 5.
Thank you, Mayor Purcell, Chair. Some of this, I think much of it I've covered with the board members in committee, but for the record in the minutes, I'll repeat some of it.
Sorry, Jim, it's a little hard to hear you. Could you move a little closer to your microphone, or it may help if, if we mute other people in the room. Thank you. We can't hear you at all now. It doesn't appear that you're on mute, so my hunch is that your voice was being picked up by Commissioner Purcell's microphone.
I'm muted.
No, you're not.
Can't hear you either, Matt.
You'll have to come over here.
All right, head over there.
I don't need the headphones.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, great.
I thank Mayor Purcell for sacrificing the microphone that works here in the Collaboration Center. As I have already spoken on most of these topics with the board in committee, but for the purpose of the meeting and the public, and also for the minutes of the meeting, I'll revisit some of the topics we've already discussed. First, just an update on tornado remediation. As the board may recall, as a result of the tornado on that Tuesday, the 3rd of March, we had 1,671 apartments that were at risk, and we wound up housing in hotels just over 100 people. We were able to get most of the 1,670 repaired in 24 hours without displacing residents. 100 went to hotels, but by Friday, following the tornado, we had everyone back in. There was a residual amount of relatively significant damage, but that damage was not impactful to the safe and healthy operation of the apartments. It was things like replacing window casements that we'd fixed the glass, but the entire window had to be replaced, or roofs that had temporary repairs that needed to be fixed. We're about 80% complete with those permanent repairs. All of our insurance claims are in, and we are working with FEMA to cover the gap for our deductibles and for the overtime and extra payments that the insurance would not cover. We're cautiously optimistic it will be a cost-neutral event, but I'm very pleased and very proud of our staff, and that the residents, primarily those at Parkway Terrace, that got impacted so severely that their lives were not completely upset, and we were able to make them whole with grants of $100 each to replace their food and refrigerators. And we want to thank Nashville Electric Service for getting the power on as quickly as they did. On to the COVID, obviously a challenge and a struggle for all of us. We are now, I'll deal with the employee staff approach. We're now working with 172 employees in telework, which is an increase from our initial figure of 101. They are not coming into work except for anecdotally, we're federal computer systems that you can only work from a secure site for some of the financial stuff. They come in episodically for that, but everyone, 172 of 322 are working at home. We have roughly 20 of the senior executives that are still coming in on a daily basis to the office. And the balance are split, which is larger, our maintenance staff are split into 2 teams, Team Predator and Team Titan. Team Predator comes in on 1 week of the 80 hours of a 2-week pay period. It works Monday through Saturday. And then they have the following week at home where they have program techs and some training exercises they're able to do on the computer. And then the week that Team Titan is at home, Team Predator comes in and takes care of our maintenance. We're keeping up generally with our basic maintenance items. We're certainly covering all the emergent items. We're going to see a slippage in some of the long-term maintenance issues that we'll pick up at the back end of the crisis. Thus far on staff, we've had a total of 7 employees tested. We've had 3 confirmed cases, and these are updated figures just here in the last few minutes. And 1 of the 3 has recovered. The other 2 are in quarantine. On to our employees, as I think the board's aware, roughly 3 weeks ago, we closed our towers where all our seniors and disabled live. We closed our towers or screened our towers closely for visitors, essentially closing the towers to any visitors that were not medically required or had a supportive need to a resident. We've increased our costs to a degree because we placed uniform security, allied security in the towers for all hours, and they control very closely access to and from the towers. And thus far, we've had 1 positive test of coronavirus in the 7 towers. Obviously, these areas are of great concern to us. They are concentrations of elderly residents of low income, and we're working very hard to keep the COVID virus out. We ran a pilot, a test program Friday and Saturday. Thanks. I want to thank publicly Council Member Sharon Hurt for bringing the service to our attention. We ran a screening program at the Gernert Towers and screened roughly 55, it may have been 56 residents. of the Gurnett Towers in a 2-day period, 8 hours per day with one physician. 18 of those screenings led to tests, and one test led to a positive. And that gentleman now is isolated in a hospital, not because of COVID, but because he had underlying health conditions that caused the physician's concern. We are working with Nashville General, and we'll get a presentation from Ascension Health Group tomorrow. And our goal is to have a screening and testing program for all employees and residents as quickly as we can. Obviously, there may be some financial repercussions that I'll brief the board on. So we believe we've minimized our risk to the degree possible for our employees through an aggressive teleworking and program to minimize risk to the maintenance workers. All the maintenance workers have N95 masks, they have gloves, they keep their head covered, and they have safety goggles. So we think we've minimized the risk of employees. We're doing our best to educate residents. In your board package, you received the multiple flyers. We've had 4 group mailings of letters to the residents, reminding them of their responsibilities and cautioning them and asking them to help us to keep the COVID virus out of our properties. And thus far, I think we've been relatively successful, but of course, we're going to keep focused on this as our priority event for the immediate future. I'll pause for a moment and see if there are any questions from the board members, and I'll move into business segments. Are there any questions? I've covered most of this with you before. Okay, then just quickly by business segment, I want to thank and compliment Urban Development, Joe Kane, Matt Wilshire, our entire financial staff of Jim Thilgen, Melinda, on the very successful refinancing of a selected 10 loans in the tax incremental financing program. We did this with the support and at the request of Metro. This has been an 18-month rough process of studying these programs. Our third-party consultant, Innovative Capital, recommended these loans to us. And I'm very happy to report to the board that our invoice to Metro for the tax incremental financing bill for this year will save Metro $23,270,070. That's based on a billing of only $7.5 million this year, when the budgeted figure was $30,770,000. We realize that our colleagues across the river are deep concerns and working hard to make ends meet, and we hope that that contribution is useful to them. But there was a lot of work behind the scenes in negotiating with banks that yielded a 1.92 percentage rate on fixed rate for loans, and a great savings through that refinancing process. And last, a shout out to Regis Bank, who took on the financing of this pretty large debt portfolio. So that was a big achievement for us. On to community development. We've had some discussions on the upcoming changes that are annually required for our action plan. We're on track and meeting all requirements. I'm happy to report that our expenditure and obligation rates for last year, we've met all HUD requirements in a timely fashion. The expenditures had to be at a certain percentage of the profile by the 1st of April. We met all those and are continuing as a high performer. In our rental assistance portfolio, Norman Deep and his team are busy with a lot of recertifications. Many of our voucher holders have lost their jobs and have a change in employment and income. So we're busy with recertification, which we're now doing electronically. And that change will change the construct of the program to a degree, because the larger the amount of the voucher, the less amount of vouchers we can have in play based on our fixed rate of funding from HUD. But that's a busy activity for us now, and we're responding quickly to the needs of the community. On to our development program. Development continues to pace. None of our constructors have backed off. We've seen no major changes in the labor market that will impact our delivery schedules for any of the Boscables. Boscable 1, we didn't get to have the ribbon cutting because of the COVID virus, but it is leasing up now and nearly fully leased. That's on Mosley and 6th. Boscable 2, the townhomes and the multifamily development, is proceeding apace. It's 80% complete. They'll be punching the townhomes with a punch list in the next month. Boscable 3 is under construction. You see it now from the interstates coming out of the ground. The townhomes behind it are financed. Randy Rogers over in Germantown, financed, and foundations are going in. We finished, we're close to leasing up Harper Cove Flats, which has finished its punch list as well. And we're now moving forward with our financing for follow-on projects with a focus on Basketball 4. We're pending a 9% low-income housing tax credit award that we should learn about from THTA by the end of June, rather. So there's been no diminishing of our development program to remediate concentrated poverty and provide mixed income apartments in Nashville with a new community for our low-income residents. On to affordable housing, and as I described, affordable housing has been, I would say, the heroes in communication to our residents and working really, really hard to maintain full operations while working under the conditions of COVID. We've seen no change or loss in our revenues. Our occupancy rates are in the 98 to 99 percentile. Our unit turns are continuing. Our maintenance and repairs continuing. We are seeing a somewhat downturn in some of the capital needs that we do internally. But all of our apartments are well maintained and proceeding apace. And I think I'll pretty much wrap it up there unless there are questions. Basically, with our structure, as we've put it together with the telework and the split maintenance staffs and the two teams, as you saw in my email laying this program out, I'm confident we can maintain full operations with no change in service to our community, at least through mid-July. And we will stay on top of and monitor and work this COVID aggressively to protect our residents in every way possible, with our next step and goal being a universal screening and testing program offering to residents, because I can't require it, and a screening program for our employees that we hope to achieve with either Ascension, Nashville General, or the private physician that has been helping us starting last week. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chairman. Unless there's questions, I'll surrender the microphone back to you.
You'll have to handle questions.
Do I have questions? Well, thank the board for their support.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
We've been doing pretty good with social distancing, at least up until then. We'll keep up the good work. Committee reports, report from Joint Development Finance Committee. Is there a report?
There is. So the Joint Finance and Development Committee met on April 9th. Our primary topics were discussing tornado remediation updates. Much of what we just heard, I believe that that our properties had around $3 million of damage. And as Mr. Herbison highlighted, we had an incredibly fast response to take care of residents and to also start getting repairs done on our properties and get everyone back into their homes or rehoused as needed. Next, we did have a very comprehensive COVID-19 update. One of the things that was mentioned was that we are anticipating CBG funds from the federal government to come down so that we can also be deploying those for our COVID-19 efforts and prevention efforts. And Jim also highlighted some of the other things we talked about. During the discussion of the board, I think the thing that was most emphasized was how impressive and thorough the response of MDHA has been, especially to really taking seriously our higher density senior and disabled housing. From there, we moved on and discussed the Rolling Mill Hill parking garage update. And we had a partial presentation at that time and then ended up adjourning the meeting because we met again this morning. And so with that, that meeting was adjourned. And then the Joint Finance and Development Committee reconvened this morning at 9:30. We took up discussing the Rolling Mill parking garage. This garage is 322 parking spaces, and it was an informational presentation around the expectation that staff will be bringing back to us guaranteed maximum price for the construction of this Charlie Barnes parking garage. The outcome of this project will be approximately $17 million for Envision Casey. We are providing or have provided an agreement to provide a TIF loan on this project. And by function of this development occurring, it releases the surface parking lot at Ryman Lofts for future development. After we discussed that, we moved on from our informational presentation, since there was nothing to vote on. We moved on to discuss the Home Investment Partnership Program and the anticipated or proposed grantees for the upcoming round of funding. I recused myself from this discussion in abundance of caution, but the information on the awards was anticipating to allocate $4.3 million to 4 nonprofit organizations for 93 affordable units. We moved from there to discuss the 2020 action plan and a substantial amendment to the consolidated plan. The amendments are largely about ensuring that we improve the flexibility that we have to be nimble and responsive to emerging community needs, specifically as it relates to the tornado. So making sure that we are able to get more funds on the street for repairs, weatherization, fixing roofs, all of the things that are needed from the tornado response, but more generally allowing us to be more responsive and flexible with our funds that fall under our Housing and Community Development Department. The next agenda item was discussion of 808 at Skyline Ridge pilot agreement. This is a pilot agreement on a 178 unit mixed income development, 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, where the maximum AMI will be at 80% AMI, averaging 60% AMI. It's proposed to do a payment in lieu of taxes, which will be brought to us at another meeting in order to ensure that we can maintain the affordability of those units. Finally, we had a presentation of the report that will go to the comptroller of the state for the tax increment refinancing package that Jim discussed in his executive report. And as he mentioned, this will yield a net savings of over $23 million this year for the city. That refinancing was at an incredibly low interest rate, making it possible for us to do this for the city and still be able to be paying off those loans appropriately. And with that, there was no additional business and the meeting was adjourned.
Questions for Commissioner Thaden?
Pardon?
Are there questions of the report? I can say for the record that all, I think, commissioners in attendance for this meeting were also in attendance for the joint committee meetings. There being no further questions, item 7, report from Housing and Community Resources Committee. Would there be any additional report?
Yes. So the Housing Community Resources Committee met on March 10th. We approved the minutes from the previous meeting, and we also had, we reviewed a proposed amendment to the Robinson Flats project-based voucher housing assistance contract. So we already approved this item at our previous board meeting, but what was discussed related to this was ensuring that we consider when we are providing these project-based voucher contracts that we want to make sure that the screening and selection criteria of residents is aligning with our mission and goals as much as possible. And so I believe that Norman Deep and his department are going to go back and look at that and consider how we can ensure that's happening in the future as much as possible. And with that, there was no further business.
Any questions? I do hope that we can have a report on that follow-up by Norman and his team at the next meeting, certainly the next committee meeting, but perhaps at the larger meeting as well. We're now on item 8 on the agenda, which is, I guess, a more thorough discussion of the executive director's report regarding TIF, as well as Commissioner Thaden's report. Go ahead.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. At its February 11th meeting, the board authorized 4 loans with Regions Bank to refinance 10 existing tax increment finance loans. This was to take advantage of lower interest rates at 1.92% and to make the annual debt service payment requirement from the metropolitan government lower and more stable. These loans closed on March 27th. State law, through the Tennessee Comptroller of the Treasury, requires that a report on all debt obligations be provided to the board during a public meeting and then submitted to the comptroller. Accordingly, a report on debt obligation for each of the 4 loans is being provided to the board during this meeting. It was in your board packets. There's no specific action by the board, and I would add that all of the financing that we did, we briefed the state comptroller's office at every step of the way. We had several meetings, so they're fully aware of the refinancing and supportive. We received in writing their support prior to proceeding with closing loans. Unless there are questions, this is my report, and there is no action required.
Are there any questions? Is there any additional business to come before the board? Again, for those who are listening or watching, this was an informational session today. We attempted and have, I think, succeeded in deferring all action items into the May meeting, when we have every confidence that we'll be clearer about the state of the emergency. We will also be clearer about how many microphones it takes to run a meeting. We will also be clearer about, frankly, the outcomes of all the good work that were praised during the committee, and I think also praised earlier during the session today. We are very, very thankful. I think I know I speak for the whole board in saying we are very thankful for the way our leadership, our executive director, the full team on this call and otherwise have responded, and the way in which we know as a board we work very hard to protect our staff and our residents. And my sense is that each has been a priority and the highest priority for staff here. The communication with the Department of Public Health, my understanding, has been ideal, and it's been a collaborative and cooperative effort throughout. And my understanding is our position has been, if public health believes we should do it, then we have. And lastly, I would say that, I think this was referenced earlier, the effort to communicate with our residents in the senior towers and across the whole wide range of our footprint has been ongoing through leaflets delivered to the doors, delivered electronically, put up in public areas, even as residents do move in and out of the building to the grocery or whatever else. But the direct mailings as well have all been an effort throughout this period, and I understand will continue as we move forward, making sure that all are communicated with. And Commissioner Batts, as someone who is there in one of our apartments now, is there anything you'd like to add about how things are for you and for your neighbors?
Well, it's still a lot of social gathering, like on the basketball court. It has to stop. Just like I was just talking to my teenager son that we don't know if anyone is infected, but when he's coming in, excuse me? Oh, we don't know if anyone's infected, so that he has to take responsibility to do what they've been forced to stay in. I mean, I know it's hard, but it's a lot of teams still outside on the basketball court. Yeah.
I knew that I was hoping and believing it wasn't, you weren't reporting on yourself. You were saying you were observing this occurring in the neighborhood. You haven't been playing basketball, have you?
No, but I have a teenage son that plays basketball.
I know.
We have to, yeah.
I understand.
Do what's right. We have to do what's right.
And I have to tell you that Jim Harbison earlier remarked to me, and I believe would confirm now, that really is an ongoing priority beginning again today. Social distancing here at Casey and other places. And honestly, in the community at large is going to be an issue as the weather improves, as the crisis appears to be hopefully plateauing. I think we're all worried about people dropping their guard. So I thank you for reminding us about the importance of checking on particularly the youth of our community within the areas that we control. And that means a lot to us. Thank you. And Mr. Harbison. I can.
Can you hear me okay? So Ms. Batts, are the basketball goals down yet at Cumberland View? I know we've taken them down here. We should be getting those goals down. Community doesn't like that, but we're taking basketball goals down to prevent or to mitigate their use. Are they down at Cumberland View? I haven't got out there this week.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
Okay, we're gonna be getting those rims off this week, so that will help
Thanks.
at least with that. And also, for the group, we have Ms. Kimmy Jackson, President of Neighborhood Housing Residents Association, who is on the call and was scheduled, as we schedule these things out in advance, to speak to the board about our neighborhood housing. That's our scattered sites of duplexes all over the county, and this is among our resident associations one of the more difficult ones to manage because of the dispersed nature of the properties. So Ms. Jackson, if you're on and it's accepted in the board chair, I'd like to hear any comments you may have, and especially interested in what remediation efforts we're doing with your neighbors as best you can on the COVID.
Okay, how you doing? Well, in my area, everything is well. I have no problems with nobody hanging out because I can see all of them because we're everywhere. But over in my area, everybody's mostly in.
That's good.
That's great news.
Yeah.
In general, how are things with the resident community for neighborhood housing?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I was just curious, in general, how the resident association is doing in neighborhood housing.
Oh, we're doing real good. We already have registered for our Nashville Night Out, and everything else is going well. We had to cancel things because of this, this COVID-19, but other than that, everything is good.
Well, we may not be able to get you on with the board in the near future again. Do you have anything specific you need to let the board know about? Anything?
Well, not at the moment, but I probably will by then. I probably will.
Well,
But I have a question.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yes. Thank you so much for the work you do. And I'd just like to know if your fellow residents is there any excitement around the census, and do you expect people to participate?
Is that for me?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Repeat that again. I'm sorry.
Thank you for the work that you do. And I'm glad things are well with you and your fellow residents. And I wanted to know if people had been receiving their census forms, and if there was any excitement about it, and are they planning to fill them out?
No, the most ones I've talked to, they sent them in.
Very good.
So far they have sent them in.
Great.
I haven't got in touch with everybody, but most of them, they're sending them in. That's a good thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other business to come before the board? Is Ms. Joya Gray on the line? If you are, could you unmute and let us know that you're there? Ms. Joya Gray. She's the property manager there, and she is apparently not on the call, but I think we had a good report, and I thank Commissioner Coleman in particular for following up. Any other business to come before the board? This is the first, again, meeting that's ever proceeded in this way. It is also the first meeting in which actually the materials have been transmitted electronically with the board's approval. I think we'll continue to transmit electronic records to the board as well as hard copies until such time as we determine whether one or the other is best or both are best. We will plan for our next meeting again to be done in the same way. with incredible technological improvements. We get better every day here at MDHA, and I have every confidence that we'll just get better and better at this. And I appreciate especially Commissioner Thaden's modeling of excellent video presentation skills at the helm of the committee last week and again this morning as well. Saul, unless there is something from our lawyer that precludes it, unless there is objection, we will stand adjourned. Seeing no objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You.
Thank you. Bye-bye.